Finance Ministry has unveiled a plan which aims to monetize national assets and get revenues to the tune of 6 lakh crore rupees. So the national monetization pipeline was unveiled today along with a dashboard to track the progress. Assets worth 6 lakh crore rupees will be put on the block, including...
But what the asset monetization pipeline does today is to take this entire thing to the next phase, where you're looking at the public-private partnership. You're also making sure, and here let me first of all underline, Amitabh did say it during his presentation, and Rajiv Kumar ji also has mentioned it. There's no land here. This entire pipeline, national monetization pipeline, is talking about brownfield assets where investment has already been made, where there is a completed asset which is either languishing or which is remaining not fully monetized or which is remaining underutilized. So by bringing in the private participation into this, you're going to be able to monetize it better, and with whatever resource that you're having obtained through the monetization, you're able to put in further investment into infrastructure building. So first of all, for those who have this question in your mind, which means, are we selling away the lands? No, this infrastructure national monetization pipeline is talking about brownfield assets which need to be better monetized. And more importantly, I want to show you again a slide which Amitabh showed and which has been very clearly emphasized by Rajiv Kumar ji, that ownership of assets remains with the government. That was a slide shown. I'm just showing it here. The ownership remains of those assets with the government, and there will be a mandatory hand back. They'll have to give back after a certain time. So let there not be any confusion, oh, this government is selling away. No, these are assets, brownfield, which will be still with the ownership of the government.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. So until now, we have discussed what an NMP is, which is National Monetization Pipeline, what an NIP is, which is National Infrastructure or Investment Pipeline, and what is the approach that central government is taking for both these pipelines, and what are the various monetization models that they're considering, and what are the budget or the revenue estimates that are gone into it. And we also discussed various questions, underlined questions that we have for the government. In the next few episodes, I will be talking about the UK example and how UK transformed itself. The Russia example, how Russia traded into a very different path and did not see a very good results. We will also be discussing about monopolies, oligarchies and stuff. So let's begin. Yeah, so let's begin with the crucial and the most important question, which can make or break the NMP, which is, why are we leasing it? Why are we not going for a clean sale instead? When I say a very clean sale, hypothetically speaking, instead of leasing 100 assets, maybe we can sell 10 assets and generate equivalent value, right? And I've seen many economists also questioning this, including Kaushik Basu. So let's understand, why are they doing this? Is it because of the political pressures that they have? Because the economists, and even I, don't have to win an election, but whereas the political party has to win their next election. So then they do understand the word privatization or sale is not very desirable or not very popular with the masses. So to kind of save themselves from impending losses, I mean, when I say losses in terms of political losses, they probably are kind of shielding themselves with the lease and not a sale. But Economically speaking, it is not the best option. Probably it's one of the worst options that we can think of. And why I say this? So usually politicians do not like to sell any asset or sell or privatize any PSUs. They only do so when there is no other option left. Because these PSUs or other public sector units kind of serves the politician interest to the best. For example, each of these PSU have a role for a chairman who is sitting above the managing director, the MD, whereas MD is more of a business post where the person has to be an expert in that particular field, whereas a chairman is a political nominee. So now we do know, right? That post, the chairman post, essentially is kind of a role created for the unemployed politicians. And not just that, most of the POCs are forced or coerced to fund a lot of programs, could be government programs as well, which a private entity would never fund. So that is how a politician usually uses or abuses the public sector units or assets. And they kind of wait until this assets become so sick that then these assets or the POCs would then be sold at a very undeserving price. We have seen this happening with the steel plant, where many are accusing that it's being put under hammer for a very undeserving price. And usually, in our own experience, we usually see that when a private players are allowed in a particular sector, usually the public sector unit becomes sick or start generating those losses within a couple of years. We have seen that happening with Air India and also with the BSNL. And currently, both these industries, or call it companies, Air India and BSNL, have become a burden on the exchequer of about 2 lakh crore a year, which is much more than what the entire NMP is generating. So we can imagine how much burden this is on the taxes that we collect from the public, which we call as public the exchequer, right? And then we'll see how things pan out in both for both Air India and BSNL. For Air India, we see the latest news that the bids have come from Tata Sons and SpiceJet Chief. We don't yet know the bid values and more details on it. So let's wait and see what's happening in that space. That's in a nutshell how this how politics kind of run or overrun the business interests, right? Well, now let's see the best examples that can be considered for privatization. While there is no blueprint or a perfect steps on how to privatize, we have experiences in the past which tells us that the best way to approach is to privatize, fully privatize. I mean, we have seen UK doing this in 1979, 80, when UK the public sector assets were kind of running into losses of about £3 billion a year for UK. That's when the Margaret Thatcher government came up with this privatization of a lot of public sector units and assets, and it generated about £2 billion that particular year. And over a period of time, it kind of generated about 34 billion pounds eventually. Right? That's the potential that we're talking about, what privatization can bring to the table. And it's not just about the revenue or the money that privatization is associated with. It's more to do with how fundamentally the public thinks about these assets and revenues. It's more of also the thinking pattern that changes over a period of time, and the outlook towards the public assets, the private property completely transforms once a privatization is kicked in. That in a way kind of generates a sense of responsibility towards these assets, whereas as long as they are under the public umbrella, we don't really uh, realize that ownership or a sense of responsibility, right? Uh, which this attitude or outlook changes once these assets are privatized, and we will see how UK has transformed himself. Transformed itself once the privatization has kicked in, and how the public mindset in a whole has changed after that. Yeah, that's we'll explore that particular example in a bit. The privatization of public assets in UK has transformed, as I said, transformed its entire sectors and industries, and also changed this narrative of public sector borrowing requirements into public sector debt repayment, and it eventually repaid about 12.5% of the national debt. So that's a very huge, right? Um, so was this all done very seamlessly? Was there was no friction that they have overcome? No, certainly not. UK government faced a lot of friction, a lot of voices against privatization. As you can imagine, right? It was in 1980s that I'm talking about. At the time, socialism was still a very popular approach, as well as people. Privatization was very new, and probably many did not even hear about. The public largely did not understand how capital markets worked and operated. So there was a lot of friction and a lot of negativity that was showcased by a large section of the society. So how did UK government tackle that? So apart from conducting a lot of interviews of economists and politicians, conducting seminars, discussions across various platforms, the UK government and Margaret Thatcher understood. She understood that this skepticism can only be overcome by doing a very big and a very positive privatization with huge revenue potential generated out of it. So they knew that we'll do it, and they did it with a big bang kind of an approach. And the company that they choose to do kind of experiment of this big bang approach was British Telecom in 1984.
So, Melvin, how long have you been working for Vernon?
Working with me, Loretta? Working with me? Oh, probably that client I was telling you about. Hello?
Melvin, it's me. Do you know anything about this BT share offer?
Hey? Oh, yeah, I am aware of the opportunity.
Oh, good. I told you would. Oh, I see. What was that again?
I said it's an opportunity to buy shares in something that most people already use every day, or in some cases every minute of the day.
So that's all there is to it then?
Yes, that's
Part of
all.
the government's remaining shares in BT will be offered for sale in November.
Oh, good. Could you just run through it again? Well, I've got that then. So tell me, Melvin, Are you eating properly?
For details and to reserve a prospectus, phone 0272 272 272.
And history tells us that privatization of British Telecom was the biggest until then any other country has ever done. It kind of generated 4 billion pounds value, and the next closest was only the AT&T privatization. Essentially, the second offering of AT&T, which generated only or merely $1 billion. So British Telecom kind of exceeded by a huge margin by generating 4 billion pounds in 1984. And the interesting point or factor in British Telecom privatization was it was 9 times oversubscribed, and about 90% of British telecom employees have bought their shares in British Telecom. So even the employees have shown a promise or a trust in this privatization, right? Over 2 million people have invested in the shares. So that's how the entire privatization of British Telecom was planned, and it was, though it started with a lot of skepticism and negativity, it eventually turned out to be a very positive kind of aura or attitude towards this privatization, and that's where Indian government kind of lacks, right? Always we have seen that with everything that they talk about privatization, even they are not fully convinced, or they do not generate that positive aura or positive attitude around it. They kind of do a very half-baked or half-baked approach, wherein a lot of people or many in the society are still not very happy with the approach that the government is taking. Maybe this changes with this current government, because who understands better about the mahol or the attitude better than the BJP does. Let's hope they kind of understands this, but I still doubt it because they have chosen the path of lease, not a sale, which essentially means they are only doing that half-baked kind of approach rather than going all out with a lot of trust in what they're doing.